We made this.
Hello and welcome to CHUCKYVISION, the podcast about child's play and Chucky and killer dolls and stuff like that, here on the We Made This podcast network. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host for this special bonus episode, the second one in as many weeks. With me at this time, as usual, is Dev.
You see, I cut the high for time, but then that's counterproductive because I have to explain that I cut the high for time, so, wasting more time.
You've completely lost me. Are you just winding me up?
That's what we're doing today. We're doing deleted content, which a lot of this is just cut for time.
Just say hello.
I said hello.
We are looking at the Season 2 Blu-ray of Chucky. And we're doing it because we did this last year. And last year, there wasn't very much to talk about. This year, there's even less to talk about.
Yeah, it's a strange fool's errand we're doing here. I guess it opens up the conversation of physical media in the landscape today. I know recently Disney Plus have dropped like 40 plus titles from their streaming service, including recent ones like The Willow Show. You know, the TV adaptation of Willow? That's just not on Disney Plus anymore.
Why have they done that?
I don't know. I guess people aren't watching it, so they've dropped it. But like, that, you know, it definitely opens up a conversation of some of those TV shows on Disney Plus don't have Blu-rays, so God knows how you're going to watch it now, if you want to watch it. So, it's a good thing we've got the Chucky Blu-ray, but not much else on it aside from the show we love.
No. It is very similar to last year's Blu-ray. I bought the Good Guys Edition again. So you get the standard Blu-ray release in a special lenticular slipcase box thing. It also includes a 32-page booklet, 4 art cards, and a pop-up card. And unfortunately, that immediately highlights that it's gently downgraded from last year, because as cool as the little pop-up card thing is, last year we got like an acetate art card, which was much, much cooler. So last year it seemed like they didn't care, and this year it seems like they don't care a little bit more.
Well, it's an interesting thing with TV box sets, because the movies and stuff have behind the scenes more so than TV, I think. It really depends on what the TV show is. And as we talked about with Living with Chucky, I don't know if they would have done more behind the scenes stuff if not for like the COVID restrictions.
Maybe.
That would require more people on set filming the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but even compared to last year's release, there's so little on the Blu-ray anyway, and it feels like they've ever so slightly downgraded the extra stuff in the Good Guys edition as well. The lenticular thing last year was really, really cool, whereas this pop-up trading card thing is just crap.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a case of money as well, like not as many people bought the Season 1 special edition, so it was a case of, well, why should we splash out so much if no one's going to get it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a gentle budget cut, because this piece of card will cost them less than the lenticular thing. I'll go through the other stuff you got as well. The postcards are double-sided, good quality pictures. On one side of all of them is a Chucky logo with a specific thing, and on the other is a picture from the show. The first one is a Christmassy Chucky logo, and on the back of that is the car with Glenn, Jennifer Tilly, but in a doll, and Tiffany. Then the next one is Candle's Chucky logo, and on the back of that is Good Chucky before he was good, where he was being kind of like not chocolate orange, Clockwork Orange tortured. And the next one is it's the Chucky Tellies logo, and on the back of that is all three of the main protagonists looking very, very concerned. And then you've got Pumpkin's Chucky logo, and on the back of that is, I think it's Good Chucky again, and they've got a knife going towards his eye. So they're kind of nice. They're good quality, and they're the same kind of vibe as last year's where they did that. And in both cases, they will inevitably just end up being in the box set, and I won't look at them ever again.
I think those are nice. I actually do when I get those little postcards. I do put those up on my walls. We've talked about how nice the Chucky opening logos are each episode, so that does sound nice to me.
Yeah, they're good, but I don't know. When it comes to these sort of things, I tend to keep the set together and as a thing rather than actually use the stuff. So what's the point of me actually buying the special stuff? But hey. And the booklet, it's another good quality one. It's got Chucky on the front, looking scary. It's then got some very brief episode synopsises, and then a synopsis of season 2 as a whole. And if you remember last year, they had like character bios. They haven't gone for that this year. The majority of it is designed like a school yearbook. And so the cutest couple are Jake and Devon. Most improved is Lexi. Biggest flirt is Tiffany. Most likely to be in 2 places at once, Glenn and Glenda. Best hair goes to Chucky. Most ambitious, Andy. Most two-faced, Nika. Most devoted, Father Bryce. Then there's some more nice pictures and some quotes from Chucky. Basically, lots of nastiness from him. For example, just looking at me is scary enough to give you a heart attack. Oh my God, thank you. It does also have the 22 days of Christmas, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
It's got the full list of that. There's actually quite a lot of Christmassy images in the booklet. It's kind of nice, but again, it feels like it's got slightly less effort than last year.
Maybe, but I mean, that's still nice. That is still a nice inclusion that exists.
Oh yeah, and I think what's really good is it kind of at least attempts with a gently slightly less amount of budget, quite obviously, to kind of keep consistent to the first release.
Yeah, and we have been talking on and on with like season 2 especially, whether or not Sci-Fi is going to renew Chucky at all. This at least shows that Sci-Fi is putting effort into their content. They do care about the shows they put out.
Yeah, and I think they really do want to keep it consistent because, you know, they know horror fans and they know that we like consistency on this sort of thing. Nobody wants a different sized box set next to the previous season's box set, that kind of thing. And the box itself, it's cool. It's got Chucky on his throne, you know, the image for season 2 where he's got his hands on Tiffany on one side and Gigi on the other. And it's hologrammatic like it was last year, but it just doesn't quite look as cool as the iconic knife image, and it doesn't feel as 3D. It just, yeah, it's just clearly cheaper, and that does make you worry, don't you think, about how they're seeing Chucky season 2?
Maybe, but then this is more than nothing, you know. It could have just been the base release, and that's it.
True. But like I say, the base release is included in it. You don't get anything extra for buying the Good Guys Edition. You just get the standard Blu-ray release. So let's talk about that. The DVD setup is standard, really. It does have my pet hate of music that repeats and 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 repeats. And unlike last year, there was a documentary on last year's release. There are just deleted scenes. Even though it's an international release, it's like Region 0, there is just English dub and subtitles English for SDH, which I didn't know what it meant, but they helpfully tell you means subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing. So it's got no languages at all other than English. So that feels kind of lazy. Did they not translate it at all for foreign markets?
Well, channels like Sci-Fi, it really depends on how far-reaching that goes in terms of international, anyway. Like, how many people in the world saw the TV show?
So, Disc 1 has... Well, it says extras. It has extra. It's got one 30-second deleted scene. That is literally it. One 30-second deleted scene. And that deleted scene is basically nothing.
Hey, to spin into a positive, Don Mancini, he has his budget, and he does not waste budget. He films exactly what he needs.
Looks like it.
I mean, what are we asking for, really? More deleted scenes? Like, film more stuff that isn't going to be in the end product?
I guess, but I want more than 30 seconds. That hardly counts as anything, does it?
Yeah, as you'll get into it.
And so the scene is Devon and Jake vaulting a fence and getting into a car. That's it. And the only things that even vaguely inspired me as something to talk about is quite dexterous when they jumped the fence. And it wasn't stunt people, it was definitely the actors. Good.
I think that this is the only reason this scene exists, but then is also not important to exist in the show, is just to explain how they got to Lexi's. And so they took an Uber, and that's it.
Yeah. And there is like a line that I think may have been considered important at this point, but then not so much. No one's going to kill, not this time. And that's obviously a reference to the last season. But yeah, I think they were right to cut this scene. I don't think it achieved anything.
Yeah.
So, disc 2. There are 2 deleted scenes on this one. They're both from Going to the Chapel. And the first one is some random kids being locked into a dormitory by Bryce, and then a conversation with Ruth. And they were random kids, right? I hadn't forgotten some characters that mattered.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of the scene was to gently kind of reconcile Ruth and Bryce, because Bryce admits that he was wrong about not believing her, that the Chucky dolls were alive. But again, I don't really feel like it was needed.
No, it is one of those things where I was going to say like the Uber one, but a bit different. It's there in theory to help explain the characters a little bit more. Like, as you said, Father Bryce is now turning face, but then also we see Sister Ruth is turning heel. But I guess when you look at it, it's a bit too signposted, this scene, to set up what's going to happen. It works better without it, because then it's more surprising when Father Bryce does turn full face and Sister Ruth does turn full heel.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it would have actually watered that down. The second scene, I actually quite liked it. It was a confessional for Devon with Bryce when they were all revealing their dark secrets and things that they'd been hiding. And it's actually really, really sad and covers like quite deep relationship issues, on how you feel when someone you love has done something really bad that you're not sure you can forgive. And I see no reason why this couldn't have been in the show, because it was, other than it was bleak as fuck, it was really meaningful, I thought.
It's an interesting scene because it made me remember, it's been a while since I've seen season 2, but I recall when we did this episode, in the final product, Devon doesn't have a confession, does he?
No.
No, he did. This is his confession, but in the actual show, we noted that he doesn't actually have one, and we're like, oh, Devon's such a good guy, he doesn't have any confessions, but he did actually have one. So this is the only scene really of any importance, and it's a short scene, so it wouldn't be bad if it was in there. I guess you could argue, similar to the other Going to the Chapel scene, that the last episode, when they have the argument at the Christmas dinner, this kind of, in a good, in one way, it sets that up. But in another way, it kind of spoils it, that he's not going to forgive Jake so easily.
So you think that's why it was cut?
Yeah, because without it, the finale is more surprising. Like, oh, they're still arguing. They haven't fixed this yet. So I understand why he may have taken it away. And also, this is 2 deleted scenes from one episode. Going to the Chapel was a packed episode.
True. Yeah, I still think it should have been left in, but now you've said that, I can see why it was, again, in a similar reason to the previous scene, it was cut to make it a bit more of a surprise, to not kind of preempt something later on.
Compared to the other one, this one, is interesting enough that it could go in.
I think so. And that's it for the Blu-ray extras. Thank you for listening to Chucky. Well, you had an idea, Dev. Do you want to take over from here?
Yeah, well, first off, you did tell me you were going to wring 20 minutes out of the Chucky Blu-ray. I didn't think you could, but you did. So good on you for that. But this won't take long at all. I thought we were going to have nothing to say on this, like 5 minutes, and that'd be that. But you went over all the details, which was nice. But for another, like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, I just wanted to cover some other deleted scenes, because I thought when I first watched these 3 scenes that they were all on par with the first one in terms of they're completely pointless. But we did talk about how, including like the Devon's confessional one, that does change the way we see certain things. And so I just wanted to look at a couple of other horror deleted scenes that change how we look at those movies. And you did mention a couple good ones. So, I took those into account. We'll look at a tiny one that changes things in a very small way, which I really like. Nightmare on Elm Street, the 1984 original. This is one I really like. It's a tiny bit of dialogue, but I really like it, and I think it gives more motive to a lot of the characters, where it's in the scene where Nancy finds the glove of Freddy Krueger, and she learns that her parents and all the other parents killed Freddy Krueger, and that's why he's getting revenge. And that is how it is in the movie. In the deleted scene, her mother adds that Freddy is getting revenge because he killed the relatives, like the brothers and sisters of these characters. And I thought that's a really interesting motive because it gives Nancy a bit more to work with. There's the tragedy behind that, and I think it explains why the mom becomes an alcoholic, because she's already lost one kid, and why the dad is so protective because he's already lost one kid. I think it does add quite a bit. Did you know about this?
Yeah, I did. And I think I actually thought it was part of it for some reason. And I don't know. I don't understand why it was cut. I think it adds quite a lot for just a few seconds of stuff that was cut.
I wonder if it's the same way they backpedaled on Freddy Krueger just being a murderer. Do you know what I mean? Nothing else. Like, he's just a clean murderer. Like, was Nancy and these other characters already losing siblings too sad for what could be a fun horror film.
It's a horror film that's supposed to be horror.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I really like that story wrinkle. And as you say, it's so brief. It's just like a couple lines of dialogue. But here's another similar one. It's a very short scene, but it's more set up. It's The Exorcist, the original, and it has the scene from the book.
I loved this. I hadn't seen this.
Oh, yeah, you've never seen it. This is quite well known because it's the scene of young possessed Reagan going down the stairs on her hands and feet like a spider, and then she flicks out her tongue like a lizard, and she scares her mother's friends. And yeah, this was deleted because it didn't quite look right.
What? I thought it looked great.
Well, here's the thing. When they filmed it, you could still see the wire work, like the strings that held her up, and he didn't like how it looked. The version I sent you, in 2000, it was cleaned up. They got rid of the wires with special effects. And then William Friedkin edited it back in to his Exorcist director's code.
Aha, okay. So this scene epitomizes my problem with The Exorcist. It looks nasty. The way she comes down the stairs is genuinely uncanny. It's really creepy shit. And then it's ruined by belching. The Exorcist, to me, really struggles to not be funny when it's not supposed to be. I laughed at the fact that they used belching rather than, I don't know, a roar or whatever. But in the wrong way in my head, it took me out because it was silly. Burping is silly.
I really should have checked this. I think that may have been edited in. I don't think that is in the actual film. I sent you that before I watched it, and I think that is edited in by the person who put it on YouTube.
Oh. Well, that's not very helpful, is it?
No, sorry, I only saw that after.
What is it about people on YouTube doing stupid shit to things when all I want to do is just watch something?
But, yeah, it is a good effect. The reason he didn't use it, aside from the quality of how the effect worked, was at this point in the film, this was by far the most demonic thing she had done. And I think he wanted to save all that for the finale. Right, so this would be a big, because a lot of that film is them doing all the science stuff, isn't it? All the, therapy and the conversion therapy and all that. So I think this is kind of like, oh, no, it's definitely demons. Like, it's too concrete that it's demons.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that could really be disputed, is it?
Onto some scenes that definitely changed the film in big ways. Two very similar. We're going to do these back to back. We got the original Alien, 1979. This really, only in retrospect, changes the series. In the original film, so Dallas, the captain, goes into the ship's vents to try and find the alien. I think at that point they don't know the alien has grown into a full-grown alien. And he comes across the alien, he screams, we think he's dead. But then this scene is actually a really big scene because it changes things. We find Dallas is, quote-unquote, still alive. He has been wrapped up in alien goo, and one of the other crew members is slowly turning into an egg so that the alien life cycle can continue. Had you seen this one before?
No, I hadn't. So you're right that it changes things a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very interesting because in one way, I think it's a really cool scene. It's really dark, and I think it works in isolation. I think it works for the film because the first third of it is so alien in a way that you like the ship and the egg and the way the alien is born. In the last half of the film, it does well. Obviously not at that time, but once the alien becomes the alien we all know, then the film is just the alien going around killing people. This does twist things again into the unexpected. We have no idea what's going on until we put together that this is the life cycle of the alien.
Yeah, I like it, but I think they were right to cut it.
And in hindsight, this it can never really be put back in because Aliens changes the way all of this works anyway.
Yes, good point. Do you think it was cut for that reason, that they wanted to change how things worked?
No, I'm not sure why exactly it was cut. Maybe it was cut just because it was too weird and too different, that maybe people wouldn't quite get what was happening. Because I know Ridley Scott, for a special anniversary version, I think what we watched was the work print version, but he did make it look good, and then he re-edited it into the movie. But when he did that, he said that the movie works better without it. Similar to Alien, there's actually a lot of deleted scenes in Aliens, the sequel, because they have a whole extended cut, which is like 30, 40 minutes longer. And there's a lot of stuff in that, which I think is quite good.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, this one has kind of a similar scene with people being cocooned in alien goo. We have a character who we think died, the Burke, the twat that tries to kill them all off for money. But
I think what's really interesting is how incredibly good Sigourney Weaver is in this scene, and it's a shame that acting got cut, really, because she was so good.
Yeah, this was an interesting scene because there's a lot of dialogue on YouTube in the comments and stuff about character, which, that shows you it can be a good scene, because a lot of people were saying, like, commenting on the fact that Burke is still alive, but he's been impregnated by the aliens, and she gives him a grenade so he can kill himself. She doesn't kill him like she does with Dallas as a mercy kill. She makes Burke kill himself. But, like, in a way, it's still a mercy kill because she gave him the grenade. So there's layers, there's interpretations to this scene.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's actually a really nice little subtle thing as well.
It's interesting you say subtle and little, because the last scene we're going to talk about is from the musical remake, Little Shop of Horrors, 1986. We're going to be talking about the original ending, and this is not a little or subtle scene by any means. And this was one you suggested to me, actually, because, by God, it's a whole new ending.
So, I was talking about what we were doing with my friend Dan, and it was his suggestion. And it seemed like the most obvious of all the deleted scenes that we could look at. And it completely changes the film, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible in two ways. Not only is it a whole new ending, which completely changes the tone. It's a bad ending compared to the good ending of the remake. And not only has it got like more music, because this is a musical, so that's cut music that was never used. But then it's also really long. And so many special effects.
And it feels to me like this must have cost them so much money for it to then be cut. And it shows the power of test audiences, I think. Yeah,
that really shows the power of test audiences. That because in the original film, Seymour is kind of more ambiguously bad. And he does get his just desserts in that one and dies. And I guess they were going for the same thing in this one. But then, because they made him so much more sympathetic in this one, they couldn't kill him off.
Yeah, and I mean, the way he's killed off, the slow descent into Audrey's mouth and then spitting out his specs. Oh, it was grim.
Yeah, and even darker, in the original one, it's just Seymour who dies. Because, this was his own making. And in the remake, it goes to a really dark end because Audrey dies, and then this is Seymour basically giving up in a way. Like, he's just committing suicide via plant. And, you can kind of tell that the film as we have it does have a new ending, because the ending of the film is kind of brief, isn't it?
Yeah.
The whole building falls down, and then he just electrocutes the plant, and then they walk away. And that's kind of it, isn't it? Whereas this goes on, this is a finale.
Yeah, this is definitely a finale, but I think the reality is they'd run out of money because they'd already spent it on this finale. The test audience hated it so much that they were like, what the fuck do we do? And it is a little bit anticlimactic, the original ending, whereas this is spectacular.
I can almost understand their point, because if it was only faster, then it would be like a funny dark ending. This ending revels so long in the bleakness of like them failing. Like,
yep.
It's so long. The just Seymour getting eaten takes so long. And then it just, for like 5 solid minutes, it's just like bad ending. Like Seymour fucked up and this is what happens.
Rampage? It's just a rampage.
And it's such a long rampage as well. Like, the effects are incredible. Like, Audrey 2 coming down the street and destroying buildings, and the great shot where he swallows up the train that just goes into his mouth. But then it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Like, Audrey 2, no less, well, it depends on, there are several, so it's like Audrey 3 or 4. But Audrey 2, no less than like 20 times goes, like, destroys a building, like, goes through a brick wall.
Oh, yeah. It's so odd that it's clearly a finished product that they just completely cut. You know what I mean, though? A lot of your cutscenes tend to be half done, and you can see that they haven't got any post-production. This is a fully rendered, ready to go, impressive 10 minutes of footage.
Well, yeah, like those other scenes we looked at, and like the Chucky scenes, you know, those were cut for various reasons by, you know, the director. They were like, oh, this is not necessary, or this is, you know, a bit too long, or, you know, timing. But it is like, they wanted to do this, and then I guess the studio relented on what the audience said. I mean, they definitely put effort into it, because it's not just like him destroying, you know, miniature buildings and stuff. There's so many shots of like, oh, people, you know, screaming on the street and then the miniatures being destroyed. But then there's like loads of shots like that one guy going up the fire escape, and that, you know, to do that is like multiple layers and stuff of like the plants in the background.
Yeah.
Like there's so many specific special effects in this that must have took a while to do.
Yeah, you're right. It's infamous for a reason. And I disagree with the test audiences. This is great.
I would say, I mean, I love it. I would say my only complaint is that it does go on really long. It could maybe do a bit of trimming down, but it's, as a whole, it's really fun.
I agree.
And to be fair, they still got in a little bit of dark ending in the theatrical version, because we see the little bud of Audrey 2 growing in their front lawn, don't we? So they were still like,
True.
Fuck it, we're not doing a full good ending.
Good.
So, without really any kind of wrap-up, that's some little extra deleted scenes we looked at for different horror movies. I did look up other, like, Chucky deleted scenes. The problem with that is a lot of the earlier ones, like Child's Play 2, a lot of those deleted scenes, they don't exist. Like, there's just descriptions of what they are.
You mean they just made the cutting room floor?
Yeah. And then were never salvaged. So it would be a lot of just reading. And also, looking through those lists, we have covered quite a few of them in some shape or form. Such as, when we did the comics, I don't even remember the 90s comics, there were certain scenes or extensions of scenes where we were like, oh, that's different from the movies. That's nice that they went a bit different. But yeah, looking at the deleted scenes, that was because, I think we talk about it, that was because they saw an early version of those films with those deleted scenes. So in a way, we have talked about Chucky deleted scenes already.
Fair enough. But I don't know. I almost thought that this episode would have just been a nothing, because there was so little to discuss on the DVD release. So I'm glad that you came up with that, so we can at least release an episode that's worth bothering with. But what the fuck are we going to do next year, Dev?
Well, hopefully Don't Mind Cine starts wasting money, so we have more deleted scenes.
Maybe. Ah, dear. So thank you for joining us for another episode, a bonus episode of Chucky Vision. And until next time, wanna play?
Chucky Vision is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This network. Follow us on Twitter at CHUCKYVISION. Follow the network on Twitter at WMT_network. Our website is WeMadeThisNetwork.com. The logo was designed by Dev, and the theme tune composed by Dark Fantasy Studios. Wanna play?
Art changes over time. This might feel weird to say because the art itself doesn't physically change, but if we agree that art tells us something about the world around us, what happens to that art once the world has changed? This is the question we try to answer on Movieversaries, a film podcast on the We Made This network. I'm the host, Bo Nicholson, and in each episode, my guests and I celebrate and re-evaluate films on significant anniversaries. We examine films from all over the world through a critical lens to determine if they stand the test of time by exploring their themes, performances, and techniques. This year, our focus is on movies made in years ending in 3. So far, we've covered the avant-garde classic Meshes of the Afternoon from 1943. On the other end of the spectrum, how does the technical marvel Jurassic Park hold up 30 years later? We also delve into other iconic films of their time, such as King Kong from 1933, 8.5 from 1963, and Return of the Jedi from 1983. From European art house to action, comedy, and horror, if a film is celebrating a significant anniversary, we're discussing it. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Movieversaries now, wherever you get your podcasts.